Everybody throws away waste. We do this all the time. The average American throws away about 4 to 5 pounds a day. There are roughly 300 million people in the United States, which means an average day in the United States produces 1.5 billion pounds of trash in a day. How much waste do you think we throw away?
To throw too much waste away, but sometimes, I'd just rather get rid of things than have them cluttering up my space. And so I probably would say the average person probably throws away maybe 5 pounds of waste a day. 5 to 10 pounds.
In a day, probably like a couple pounds, I would say, for me personally.
I would waste probably a pound or 2 pounds in a day. How much do you waste at home? Like
Well, say generally we throw away about twice as much as we recycle.
Between my wife and me and my daughter, it's probably, I would say 5 pounds a day.
Probably 10 pounds. How much do you think we throw away in the city, all in all?
Hundreds of tons a day.
Thousands of tons, I suppose, every day.
How much do you think we do in USA?
I can't count that high. I mean, mountains of garbage.
It's got to be millions of pounds a day, sure.